KGMI Morning News Extra.
Talking business with Jason Mercier, who's the director for the Center of Government Reform at the Washington Policy Center. Happy New Year, Jason.
Happy New Year, Mike. I'm glad to finally turn the page on 2020.
Well, I hope we don't make things worse for small business owners next year with this new statewide employer compensation tax bill that's circulating.
Yeah, with the session starting next week, we are already hearing about the tax proposals. And I think the context you need to keep in mind about any new tax proposed is that the budget is balanced. Revenue is already projected to grow by over 7%. And because of the amount of damage caused by the economic restrictions to respond to the virus pandemic, employers are already facing a massive unemployment insurance tax increase next year because of the social tax required to bring that trust fund balance back up. So in that context, the fact that anybody's proposing any new taxes is quite shocking.
Well, that unemployment tax premium change, in my other job that I have to support my radio habit, I work for a small business, and it's going to impact our business by tens of thousands of dollars a year.
And you're talking about imposing this tax at a time that people are trying to not only maintain their current employees, but hopefully bring back new hires as the economy reopens up. So, that trust fund balance does need to be brought back up. Now, are there other ways to do it? Can you look at some of the federal relief coming? But as it stands right now, the law does require that social tax to take effect. And as you mentioned, now you're hearing about taking that Seattle payroll tax statewide, imposing it on all employers across the state. We're hearing comments from the governor about an income tax on capital gains. But again, the budget is balanced and revenues are growing. So why you would want to impose new tax increases on a very fragile economy as we're trying to come out of these restrictions, it's just a little bit mind-boggling.
So what are some of the details of this draft statewide employer compensation tax, the proposal that's circulating right now? What are some of the details?
Well, this is kind of the interesting thing about this. What the sponsors say they like about this is that what they call there are many dials they can turn. So by changing the salary threshold, by changing the amount of the tax, they can increase the amount of revenue they generate. And that's kind of the challenge with any statutory tax. This can change at any time. But as it stands right now, the tax is not per se on the employee, but it's on the employer for paying a certain compensation wage to the employee. So being taxed for the privilege, basically, of paying their employee. Now, it tries to exempt small businesses. It has a pretty high threshold exemption initially. But again, with it being statutory, nothing is set in stone. And that's where the comments from the sponsors about they like the dials they can turn is a little bit concerning.
Well, and a lot of time taxes will get passed with these so-called, it's only going to affect the top X percent, and then it kind of creeps.
Well, and that's the other thing that was very striking about the governor's budget proposal, where he has not only the income tax on capital gains, but other tax increases for his climate policies. He's not cutting any taxes. Usually what we're being told is that our tax burden is too high on the low income, which would seem to imply that you would be targeting some tax relief to them, reducing their tax burden rather than just increasing taxes on somebody else. So with all of these tax proposals, whether it's the capital gains income tax, the employer head tax, you're not talking about cutting other taxes.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what all goes down as the session gets underway next week. I'm sure we'll be talking to you about it. Jason Mercier with the Washington Policy Center. Thanks for joining us today on KGMI, Jason.